Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the fourth episode of the Dadaxi. I'm really happy that you're here with me today again. And as usual, I had this huge issue with coming up with a new topic, so I was thinking about the things that move me currently. And one thing that I look at on a deeper level at the moment is the topic of failing, which is not necessarily a topic that we cover a lot in our society today, because it's just we don't like to fail, right? We want this fairy tale to be true, that the people that made it without troubles, that there were no stones in their path, and that everything just came easy for them, right? So I really love to watch biographies and read biographies, or also like watch documentaries about people's lives, especially artists, because when you like dig into their lives, with every artist there was a time where they were really close to giving up on their art. Yeah, it's very rare that people just like have this easy career, although we all make it seem like that, Like, I don't know how many people have the projection on me that my life is so easy and that I'm super successful and all these things, when, like, I don't know, I struggle with financial things since I'm self-employed. But I just never, I don't know, it never occurred to me to make that such a big topic, no, because we're also trained to not talk about it, which is actually very useful to capitalism and why I think it should be broken. Like this taboo around money, but also around failing, no? So the reason why this actually came up in my life at the moment is because 3 years ago, I did a fundraiser where I collected a lot of money to create an app, because I had this, like, I wrote this book. It's called Being Human, a travel guide. And because I know that a lot of people that could use the knowledge that's in the book do not necessarily read. And I currently do not have the audio studio or the money to rent a proper one to record the full book as an audiobook. And even then, I know that there were some people that were not like into that kind of stuff. So I wanted to like create this thing where you can access the knowledge that I wrote down in the book in an interactive way. And my idea was to create an app. Today we know that I was very close at the sense of time, so to speak, or in the zeitgeist, because today everyone has an app. And I don't think it's that, I don't know if, today I don't necessarily feel like I need to have an app anymore. But still, the story behind this whole thing is that I did the fundraiser. It was super successful. I was really, I worked 18 hours a day to get this thing off the ground. And I had an app developer who really worked his ass off. But unfortunately, the things I required were sometimes over his capacity, and he didn't have the communication skills or the self-knowledge to tell me, hey, that's the border. I cannot do that. He always wanted to do more than he was actually capable of, which, caused a lot of trouble. And in the end, the app didn't work out. I think it's still in the app stores, so in Apple App Store and in the Google Play Store, but it should be out by the end of the year, because I didn't upload the necessary updates anymore because I didn't have anybody to do them. And also I don't even have the source code of the apps because all of this went very southwards. I learned a lot about my communication skills. I learned a lot about being the boss of a project that I kind of lead myself. And in the end, the app still was born. It's just a web app now that you can access over my website instead of having it directly on your cell phone. So, and when I reflected on that, like suddenly, like I scrolled down my Instagram feed. I don't even know for what exactly. I think I was looking for a post actually. Like a friend of mine asked me something, and I looked for a post that was like old. So I scrolled down, and then I like saw all these posts where I was so in on that project, and I believed so much in everything that I was saying, and I still do. And I believe so much in everything that is conveyed in the book, and that like you can learn by using the app, and the app is free. That was like the main goal, was the app needs to be free for everyone to use. And then it occurred to me that at some point I stopped. I stopped talking about the app. I stopped talking about the book. I stopped talking about all the things that were so important to me before. And it's because no matter what I did to get this project off the ground, and no matter how much of my time I invested in, like I did the best I could with my communication, with everything I had at hand. And also my developer did the best he could to the extent that he was able to do it. And still, we didn't manage to finish the project. So it was a failure. We failed, right? And then I realized that because like, like I had this idea and we did the app, and then like it took almost 2 years where as I said, I was working 18 hours a day, sleeping 6, because I did all of this like with my free time. So I had to earn money on the side and then do all of this because I produced all the content that was inside. I recorded all the audio in English and in German because it's multilingual, so to speak. And I did all the concepting. We worked with my team on the corporate identity and the way it should look and the way it should feel when you use it. And we optimized the workflow, and we did the best we could with what's possible in the framework of an app. And then it just failed. And somewhere along the journey of these 2 years, I got really tired of the project because it was too much. And I feel like part of me felt that there was something off, like that something wouldn't end in the result that I had envisioned. And like I kept on working on it, but I kind of stopped talking about the message because in a way the form had taken over more priority than the message. It was like all my focus went into the form that I wanted to deliver the message in. Like, because the book form was easy, but the app form was something new, something that I tend to do things that were not there before in the way I do them. So not even like I don't do this by intent. It just naturally comes to me that I invent new things, or that I like invent new ways of doing things, so to speak. And I got so caught up in the form and structure of how I wanted to deliver the message that my love for the message died. It was like when I can't deliver the form that I want to deliver it in, then the message doesn't have any value anymore. And this was not a conscious way of thinking, it was the subconscious way of thinking that occurred to me 3 days ago when I scrolled through my grid and I suddenly realized that I lost the love for something that I really admired. And that was a really good idea and a good concept, and everything about it is so valid and true in my opinion. And that's all that matters. But somewhere along the way, I lost that belief in it. I lost that self-worth. And it has a lot to do with the form I wanted to give to it. Because, the message is there. The way I wanted to deliver it, in the sense that I wanted it to be free of charge for everyone. I wanted it to be accessible for everyone. And that's actually way easier with an app that runs on my website than an app that goes over the Play Store or the Apple App Store. Because there you, like, I could tell you a lot of technical details right now, but I will spare you of that. But just to keep it simple, like, there is a lot of work you have to do on the programmer and coding level, like all through the year, all the time, to keep an app running smoothly. And you have to obey to certain standards of Google and Apple that I'm not necessarily happy to obey, like necessarily. I'm not even like, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't necessarily like to sign contracts and stuff like that, especially not with these huge internet giants, because we all know that they do dodgy stuff, right? So in the end, it's way better like that, because you don't have to sign up. You can have like the oldest phone in the world. As long as you have internet access, you have access to this app. But the thing is that some part of me, it was so stuck with the form, and the form is just so much more beautiful when you put it in an app. It's just, the user flow is the experience of the knowledge is just so much more fluent if you put it into an app versus you have to put it on a website. Like, unless you have millions of bucks to invest in a very expensive website, then it's another thing. But like, to get a proper user experience and flow with WooCommerce and WordPress is really hard. And that's just like what's in my financial abilities. So in the end, all the messages there, but I didn't get the form I wanted. And for that reason, and because I was really burned out, like within these 2 years, I experienced a really, really strong burnout. Like the strongest, I had 3 so far, but this was the strongest, where really like my senses didn't work anymore. So I had this total crash where I couldn't hear anymore, and I almost couldn't see anymore because my brain just crashed. And so yeah, that was also in that time. So that's another reason why I stopped doing that. And the reason why I want to talk about this so deeply is when I realized that, I suddenly realized, fuck, that happened with other things in my life as well. Like, for example, I'm divorced. So you could say that I have a failed marriage. And I never really liked that saying, that it's failed, or also a failed relationship, because to me that's not true. If 2 people were together and they decide to not be together anymore because it's healthier for both of them, then to me that's a success. No, that's a success story. It has an end. And because it has an end, we believe that it's a failure. No, because we were trained subconsciously that what is good lasts forever. And I really want to conquer that thought, because I believe that failing is one of the biggest experiences you can get. Like, it's super hurtful, it's super devastating, and I know that I'm still healing from it. Not necessarily from my divorce, because that's already 5 years ago, but from this failure with the app, although it didn't fail completely. Because it's really devastating. When you really do your best and you give everything you have, you give every penny you have, you give all the time you have, you give all the vision and all the idea you have, you give all you've ever learned into a project, and you give like just the ultimate best, and it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, that hurts a lot. And it's really difficult to recover from that when you do not look for stories that were equal. I really made it a habit after that. Like, funnily enough, it wasn't consciously, but in the past 2 years, I watched so many documentaries or biopics about artists that struggled, or other people that weren't taken seriously throughout their lives, and today they are really famous. Like, a lot of the big painters weren't like rich during their lifetime. They were actually suffering from hunger, and sometimes they were homeless, or they were really mentally ill and challenged, and now they are these superstars. So, and I feel like that really helped me to overcome this whole story of because something failed, it wasn't good, because now when I free myself of all these feelings and I look at the web app, I'm so happy it's that way because I can take care of it myself. I don't need a programmer to update everything all the time because there are new requirements or there are data violations and all these kind of things just not happening because it's on my website. If I want to change the structure of it or the flow of it or whatever, I can do that myself most probably. But it's way easier for me to do it, and it's way easier for people to use it that way. It's just not as beautiful. And like what all the things I said now, sorry, I have to laugh, apply to me too after my divorce and after I healed from it, Like getting divorced was really that wake up call I needed to have to understand where my patterns lie and where my shadows lie and what I bring into all kinds of relationships that maybe doesn't make them really last long. Yeah. And so I'm very much more easy to use as a friend or to be friends with than I was before that period. Or I'm like, I think like a human that can speak way more their truth and just be who they are and be authentic than I was before. Because before there was like this, like the app now is so much easier in everything. Also in the maintenance story, I am much easier in the maintenance now too, simply because I know myself so well. So it was kind of necessary to make this, because I never would have had the idea to put that thing on my website. That just never occurred to me. So it was about this app. And so we did the whole app. And during that time, I learned so much about the function of the app and about how I wanted it to be, because I kind of like just channeled it into being on the go. That when the point arrived that I realized, okay, there will not be an app that works the way I want it to work, it was actually, it took a lot of time and even more work to put it on the website, but it was easy because I totally understood the whole structure and the whole flow of the app. And the same happened with my divorce. So I learned the whole structure and the whole everything about me. And so now I'm able to have relationships that go into the direction that I want them to go. And I'm also very happy to just be by myself because I have this wonderful relationship with myself now. So that's funny, isn't it? But then still like you have this beautiful relationship with yourself, and then there is this shadow that you're actually not aware of until you scroll through your Instagram grid and you suddenly realize that you just like, I don't know, left something on the side because it didn't like get the form you really wanted. And I think that we do that with a lot of things, because I can like tell that a lot of my friends, for example, they don't necessarily go after the things that they like to do, because at some point in their lives, something came in the way, like in a sense of we really like to do something, but we get conditioned that we need to reach a certain point with that, or we need to reach a certain level with that, or if we really go for it, like we should go for it and then we shouldn't fail with it. Yeah. And because this like pressure comes up, suddenly it doesn't feel joyful to do the thing anymore, because we kind of lose this spark. And I feel like it's the same pattern. It's the same pattern of losing ourselves in the forms of something instead of just enjoying that we do it or that we be it. Yeah. Or like the message it brings. Yeah. Like, I think the music of Janis Joplin is so beautiful because I can really feel her emotion. And it's not necessarily always so beautiful on my ears. Like if I want to have beautiful on my ears, I'll listen to Whitney Houston. But if I want to have beautiful in my heart, it's Janis Joplin. And then again, brings us to the insight that the form isn't important, it's the message. So I believe that one of the revolutions that every one of us can start today is the revolution of changing our perspective, looking onto the message of things and not necessarily on their form. Like, for example, I don't know, like, if I compare the drawing of a child that really loves me and it did this drawing for me with the drawing of a super famous painter, the drawing of the child is more beautiful to my heart. But of course, the drawing of the painter will be more beautiful to my eyes. But when I looked at them, like, one of them has meaning to me and the other is just a beautiful aesthetic. And you know exactly which one is which. Yeah, so if we want to surround ourselves with beauty and with a beautiful life, I think a lot of it is connected to that form. Yeah, because, like, for example, I don't drive a car. I'm not good in steering machines of any sort when they're electrical. But, like, I really like old cars. And I like older machines. And I strongly believe that that's because with the older machines and the older cars, like, a lot of it was still hand built, and a lot of it was built by people who really had this passion, and it was taken care of by people who really had this passion for this car, and they did everything with their own hands. So there's a lot of love involved. And to my eye, like, I love modern stuff. So to my eye, a modern car looks more beautiful. And it's most probably also more comfortable to my senses. But the one that touches my heart more will be the old car. No? So, and I believe that one way to save authenticity in the world is to understand how beautiful failing is and failures are, because they give character to something. No, I think also that, how many times that old car broke down, so somebody had to fix it with their loving hands. That's why there's so much love in it. And I feel like the world starts to feel more empty as well, because we always throw out all the stuff and buy new things. So there is not a lot of history in the things we possess anymore. And also in the way we approach things. Know that, and it's happened, as I said, on a very fine level of I'm getting obsessed with a form instead of a message. I'm getting obsessed with how it has to look instead of how it has to feel, or what it has to have an effect in the end, no? And it's the same with, I think I said that before, but in the tribes I visited, they always work mistake into their works of art, because the mistake is kind of the hole that where spirit enters the art and leaves the art again. Yeah, and it's very important that there is a mistake inside of the artwork, because otherwise spirit cannot enter. And I think in our today's age where perfectionism has taken over everything, that's such a beautiful way to look at things. Because, I do my tattoos by hand, so for sure I strive for perfectionism, but there is always this slight off thing. And I really learned to embrace that, because it's part of my art. My art is handmade, and that's actually the beauty of it. It's not even copyable by a machine. It's something that contains so much love that flow through the ritual and through my hands, and for the love I have for this work. And you can see that and you can tell that, yeah. And it's with everything handmade or with everything artistic that is really felt by the artist, yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be handmade. It can also be a machine tattoo, but you really feel, in my opinion, the artists that really feel their art. Even if it's totally non-spiritual, you can sense that. And I really love that. It's when when the form comes close to perfectionism, but underneath it is this love for what they do. And yeah, I'm super happy that my friend asked me this question, and so I scrolled through my Instagram grid because I realized I really have to talk about this subject more again, and I want to talk about it more again because it just slipped my mind, or maybe I really needed to recover from that very strong burnout that I had and just not work as much as I did. And now slowly I can return to the message instead of being so occupied with the form of certain things. So yeah, it really struck me, like, how many times maybe we do that in our lives, no? Because we cannot really grasp this concept of cosmic timing that's so much bigger than ourselves, that if we don't reach certain points in certain time frames, we will just move on to something else. And then at the right time, these ideas come back, or these messages come back in new forms. So yeah, I believe that failing is such a gift. It's very hard, and we need time to recover from it. But like having failed with something and still loving it and still wanting to do it, I think that's like the strongest yes you can get. No? Like saying, okay, I don't care about the form. I will live for this message. And I will do that, and I will do it with all my heart. Even though I failed. Actually, because I failed. I think that's strong. I read this thing about Rocky, about Sylvester Stallone, who wanted to make the movie Rocky because it was his book. It was his idea. And he found nobody to fund the movie. And it went as far, like he had some offers, but they were like really low. And his condition was also that he wanted to play Rocky. So some producers were like, yeah, I would fund you, but I want another actor to play Rocky. And he's like, no. So he was really like, he stuck with his vision of this exact movie, of like this Rocky movie with him as the main actor and the way he wanted to do it. And in the end, he even had to sell his dog or give him away, like his dog, oh my God, because he couldn't finance his food anymore and he didn't want him to suffer. And I believe like sometime later, I don't know how long, he actually found somebody who would fund him and like be okay with all the rules he put up. And the first thing he did when he got the money was he went and bought his dog back. So I believe that that's what happens to a lot of people who want to do things differently or in their own way, you know, like, and we could say that, oh, it's the universe testing you, but I don't really believe in that. I actually believe that if you have a vision, most of the times you are ahead of your time. And so the structure to support this vision is not born yet. So you will have to pave your own way, experience failure, experience failing, and push on through. And then at some point, like if you stick in there long enough and you believe in yourself, at some point the door will open because you created that path for yourself by your constant action. That's how the universe works. If you want to open a door that's not there yet, you have to behave like it's there. And you have to put everything on the line. And then this door will suddenly appear because you created it, you manifested it. And this is not about, oh, I dream it into being or anything. No, it's about doing it into being. And, you know, Sylvester Stallone was lucky because it happened in his lifetime. But there are a lot of artists who actually like opened that door when they died or long after they have died, you know. So, but still, they pushed on through. They kept on believing. Maybe they had supporters who believed in them, who supported them during their lifetime. Because, paint was super expensive back in the day. So it was actually super expensive to be a painter. It still is. But not as much as back in the day where pigments were like crazy and imported and all of these things. Because it was all still organic. So, knowing that failure and failing are part of the path. And that they are very integral parts. That they are actually blessings in disguise. That will maybe like rip your whole world apart. But in the end, what comes out underneath it was actually what you wanted to experience also, or in another frame. And so failing, I believe, is a part of succeeding. And oftentimes when we fail, we didn't actually fail with the message, we just failed with the form. And that's because the form is a thing that our ego invents. Yeah? I mean, my ego thinks it's super cool to have your own app. Still, like my ego gets super triggered when I get an email from an Indian developer that spams me like, hey, my name is Rajesh. I'm programming apps. Can I develop one for you? And I'm like, fuck you, Rajesh. No, I've been there. I've done that. I'm not going there again. But, it's not about my ego. It's not about the form. And I think when we can overcome that, and I think good art does that, overcome the ego and allowing itself to be imperfect and to be dirty and to be loud and to not be anything perfect or in any sense. I believe that's a good way to kind of revolt in your own bubble, in your own way, against what's happening on the planet, where everybody is getting so unaware and getting so distracted and just trying to reach a state of perfectionism that doesn't feel good to anyone because they're stuck in a form. We're all stuck in a form that looks so good to our ego, but when we live it, it doesn't feel good to our heart. And when we start to focus on the art that touches our heart and to do the art and the sports, it doesn't matter if you're good at soccer. If you like to play soccer, go and play soccer. If you're 1.20 meters and you want to play basketball, go and play basketball. Who cares how good you are? As long as it's fun for you. If you want to paint and you're really bad at painting, do the worst painting ever. I do bad music every morning. Worst music ever. Or the worst music I can come up with. And it's simply to keep my ego in check. Because my ego is not right all the time. And how things look and how I'm perceived by others isn't really necessarily even important. It's not important at all. What is important is that I like what I do, I stress myself out every week to come up with a topic for this podcast. But I like to record this podcast and I have ADHD. So if I don't put myself under a little bit of pressure, nothing will ever happen. And, even if the whole world hates me or whatever, I don't care because it's fun to talk into this microphone. And sometimes I hate myself for having to do this every week because it's oh my God, I could sit back and just enjoy to do something else or whatever. But I'm no, I really like to do that. And even if I put stuff out there that maybe sometimes is a bit intimate or personal, or maybe people don't like me because of it, or they like me because of it, which both, I don't really I don't think it's good to care about either of them because it's important to be yourself. And that's I think also the main message that Spirit gave to me when I reflected on all of this now the past 3 days about this whole failing story and about my divorce and about the app, which is actually called Gnothi Seauton, and you can find it on darachi.com if you want to have a look into it. I never mentioned the main name, I just realized. So what I realized is then when I looked at it, I'm my ego was oh my God, we should definitely talk more about the app again because it's really good, although it's just a web app. But maybe we could also hire an app developer again and we could put it into the form that I actually wanted to have. And man, I laughed so hard because I was like, oh my God, here we go again. Okay, so for it to be worth it to promote it again, I would have to transform it again. No, we're not going there. We're not doing that. Like, I've had enough 18-hour days in for the rest of my life. I'm not doing that again. And then, like, I meditated on it, and Spirit gave me this beautiful message where it was like, like, fuck all of that. The world needs you exactly as you are. Exactly as you are right now, and it needs this project exactly as it is, and it doesn't need perfect, and it doesn't, like, maybe this will resonate with 5 people and the rest of the world will not be able to, like, deal with it or get anything from it, and that's totally fine. It still needs to be there and it needs to be promoted. And I believe that's with everything that you maybe are going through or it's happening in your life is true as well. The world needs you as you are. So just show up as you are with all your mistakes and all your failures and all the things that you think that they should be different. No, they shouldn't be, because if they should be, they were. If anything would have to be different right now, it would be different. So this is exactly the place that we need to be, and it's exactly the time we need to be, and we are exactly how we need to be. What keeps us from really living what we want is this blockage that we don't deserve what we want, or that something is wrong with what we want. And if we go with, and I believe that as long as we go with our ego, that's very true, because the ego always wants too much. The ego is very greedy as well. But if we can keep our ego in check and we can look at the beauty that is perceived by the heart, then it's never like wrong what we want, because all of us want the same. We want to belong. We want to feel like a part of something. We want to feel like we can have a positive impact on the world. We want to be connected to people who think and feel like us. And we want to be loved and respected. And that's about it. And then we need food and we need water. And we need some movement and some sleep. And that's it, And it's so simple. It's so simple. But ego made it very, very, very complex. Simply because we were stuck. We are stuck in the form. Like so many people tell me, like, how can you travel to so many third world countries? Doesn't it feel weird to be there, like in these very low maintenance rooms and tribes and everything? And I'm like, no. Like, it's a very Western perception that this is poor. For sure these people don't have a lot of money, and for sure sometimes it would be good to have some money for a doctor. But these people are happy. And that's something that I really come across very, very rarely when I walk through Western cities. That these people are happy and they are content with what they have, and they have a community that they feel loved in, that they feel like they belong, and that has their back. They are part of something. And a lot of us do not feel like that. A lot of Western people actually buy things or go to events just to feel that. So here, if we want to get what we want, what we desire, the sense of community, the sense of belonging, the sense of being loved, oftentimes we have to spend money to get that. And prostitution is just a very obvious example for that. But it's happening in a lot of ways, Like everyone that goes to parties all the time or goes outside all the time, being social all the time, is actually looking for that. And they spend money while they are looking for that. All the time. So yeah, when we come back to these like basic needs, and I think also that's where failing helps us, Like failing reminds you of the message instead of the form. And it reminds you of the things that are really important. So it's such a good experience to keep the ego in check and also to just stay humble. And if you would really manage as a Western society to focus back on the needs of our heart, on the message instead of the form, and we could accept that it's like these basic things that we all strive for and that we all need. As I said, community, feeling loved, feeling like we belong, being respected as we are, being able to show who we are, not who we want to be or who we should be, but who we are. that's what we all want deep down. And if we would all be able to be honest about this to ourselves and build societies where this would actually just happen, like a lot of us already do in our friend circles, then I think that that's a revolution on a very tiny scale that can have a very big impact on the world. Because as long as we all keep our focus on this perfection, that will never happen. We're part of the system, no matter how well we live and eat and all of this, But as long as there is this focus on never failing, always being perfect, never having to struggle to reach something, then the world keeps on getting more hollow and hollow and hollow. So failure is actually there to fill the world with spirit. Just how the tribes say. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and I wish you a lovely weekend ahead, and I can't wait to hear you again next week. Have a good one. Much love to you. Bye bye.